So I'd like to tell you about my story, about having a cough for 2 weeks. It was very irritating, but being a busy working mum, I probably didn't look after myself very well, and it was just a cough. This Friday morning, I decided, though, I would like rid of it for the weekend. It was to be a very hot weekend, and it would be nice if I could get some antibiotics to get rid of it for the weekend. So I did just that. I took myself to the doctors, got the antibiotics, took myself to bed, and thought I would be better the next morning. But I wasn't. I was worse. Even then, I didn't like the fuss. Probably wouldn't have done anything about it but for a bit of bullying by my mother and my friend. I phoned NHS 24 on the Saturday morning, and I told them my story. And they didn't seem to think there was a big panic either, but they did suggest that I get myself up there and be checked. So I did that. And as I walked into the Paisley RAH, I collapsed. And that's all I remember. A crash team standing round me and nothing else for 2 weeks. I know now from reports from everyone, I had pneumonia, quite chronic pneumonia. I also had, everyone has, streptococcus virus inside you, but mine was in places it shouldn't have been. And the two between them were poisoning my blood. I had sepsis, and it was taking hold at a very alarming rate of knots. Within perhaps 2 hours of being there, my organs were shutting down one by one, and the doctors didn't know what to do. My family were all called. My brother was told to get on a plane from Dubai, and probably all along thought, how ridiculous, people survive pneumonia all the time now. What's the panic? But he didn't know that they were keeping me alive until he arrived so that I could say goodbye. However, during his flight, and through a lot of brainstorming, the doctors had come up with a plan to try and get me on a programme on an ECMO machine. The ECMO machine that could fight chest issues was in Leicester. And this doctor spent a bit of time checking out the criteria in Leicester and managed to get an acceptance for them to get me on their programme. And a whole team of doctors and nurses flew up by air ambulance, not dramatic at all, from Leicester to Paisley to get me. And I've been told they ran in like the cavalry or the knights in shining armour, with their white horse being the mobile ECMO unit. That consultant I've since been to see, and he told me that in the flight on the way up, they thought there was little chance they would take me. And when they arrived, I was worse. I was dying. However, it was a weekend, and normally he'd have been answerable to someone else who would almost certainly have said no to helping me. But it being his decision that weekend, he decided there was nothing to lose, as the end result was going to be death anyway. So they plugged me onto the ECMO unit, and they flew me back down to Leicester. And I spent a bit of time down there fighting for my life. And this ECMO machine, which took the blood from me, filtered it, cooled it, took the toxins out and put it back in, as I understand it. This ECMO machine saved my life, as did the doctors and nurses of the ECMO unit in Leicester. And before too long, they felt I was strong enough to come back home, and I regained consciousness in the intensive care unit at Paisley again. And from that point, every day, as I had regained the consciousness, every day to me was a positive one. All the doctors, all the nurses that looked after me, every one of them had something positive to tell me. I was doing so well, they couldn't believe I'd been able to fight back. They couldn't believe I was getting rid of this life-saving machine and that life-saving machine, and pretty soon I'd be off this one and that one. Every single message was one of positivity. And I felt positive. However, there was a downside. In saving my vital organs, the extremities had to be left, and the circulation hadn't reached my hands and my feet, and they'd started to turn black. Over a period of time, my hands turned to what could only be described as ebony, or coal perhaps. It was brittle, no flesh, nothing soft and spongy about my skin, and my hands were showing signs that they'd gone too far. My feet, though, although they were still blue-black, there was a lot of hope for them. And I spent a total of 6 weeks getting myself well enough at the RAH to be considering moving to a new hospital for my hands and my feet to be inspected. And one Thursday afternoon, I was moved to Glasgow Royal, and I expected there to be tests and treatments, scans perhaps, x-rays, a lot of research into what state my hands and my feet were in, and what needed to go and what could be saved. I only had time as I arrived to settle into my new room. Visiting time that evening, and the following morning was my first day. I thought it would all start to be discussed. The way it actually happened was at 10 to 8 in the morning. Anyone who's been at hospital knows there's doctor's rounds. And in came this team of people to the end of my bed. There was a consultant and a couple of interns, the ward sister, physios, nurses. I didn't know, to be honest. I was new to this ward. I didn't know any of them. And the consultant led by telling the team, Mrs. Hutton has to lose her hands and her feet next week. That's exactly what he said, and exactly the way he said it. And that's not what I expected to hear. And suddenly, the positivity had gone, and it was negative. I was distraught. I was hysterical. I was alone. So the family were all called again, within a few minutes by my side again, and we tried to work out what to do in this situation. And I'd been fit and healthy and active, and this was obviously a big deal to anyone, never mind anyone active. We sought second opinions and third opinions, probably fourths actually, in my family. But it became obvious within a period of 3 days that every opinion was the same, and everyone thought these amputations had to happen. There wasn't anyone that came up with a miracle cure or the pioneering surgery that could do anything different. And we resigned ourselves to the fact that I would soon become the quadruple amputee. That happened on day 4, and for the next 6 weeks after that, I took part in surgeries to remove both my legs right through the shins, just below my calves. I lost both my hands at the wrists. They took an awful lot of tissue and muscle away. So I actually had to have my hand sewn into a pocket, a flap, on my hip for 3 weeks. And for 3 weeks I sat in this position while they changed my bed. Not this position or that position, this position. While they changed my clothes, while they bathed me. Always in this position, couldn't move at all. That was a particularly negative time. Very hard to be positive at that time. But I remember my brother Davy coming in with iPads and the such like with downloads, and almost all of them were TEDTalks by somebody inspirational and somebody who gave me some kind of information that could make me more positive in that situation. One day in particular, David came in with a cheque. The cheque had been given to him by a friend of ours in our gym, and he'd said to David, Corine's going to need a lot of money. She's going to need an awful lot of things for the rest of her life. Would you please give her this cheque? And it's far easier than doing all these silly challenges that you'll probably make me do in time. I won't need to jump off a cliff or swim the rapids, just give her the money. And I actually started a series of events quite like that, where people wanted to hand over money if they had it. They wanted to fundraise. They wanted to do anything they could to help me. We tried to decide what to do with the cheque and the monies that followed, and it was suggested that we start a charity, and maybe I could help other people. We were out one afternoon, I escaped hospital. My brother took me out to a bionic clinic in Livingston, and before that we had some lunch in a really classy joint, McDonald's joint along the way. And he pushed me in a wheelchair, which I'd never done before, and we didn't know where to sit. So kind couple had said, we'll give you our seat. And I said, no, please, no, we're trying to find our feet. And Scott behind me said, you can't say that. You've not got any feet. And that was when Finding Your Feet was born. But I wanted to fight back. I wanted to be able. I got myself out of hospital for my son's first day at school, which made me a mum again that very day. I wanted to try and make a difference. I'd discovered what I now know to be real wealth. The people that helped me, my closest friends and family, but also the complete kindness of total strangers who wanted to help. And that, for me, was my real wealth. And having found that, I thought, what am I going to do with this? And I decided the best thing I could do is to share that wealth. And I had access to all sorts of professional people, doctors and lawyers and accountants, surgeons, nurses, lots of people that helped me, but a lot of people don't have that. And perhaps I could share my wealth and that information with a lot of people who had perhaps suffered a life-changing trauma, such as me. Didn't need to be ECMO, didn't need to be amputations, just anyone who needed to find their feet. And that's how I decided I could use my wealth and I could spread my wealth. I thought perhaps being positive might rub off on some people, and I could perhaps teach people, yes, you can, and not to accept the defeat. I wanted to be able, not disabled, and perhaps I could spread that message. And being able to turn your adversity into something much more positive. At the moment, I'm looking at the next few weeks, I'm carrying the Queen's baton, and I've been invited. Thank you. I've been invited to attend her garden party. Very kind. Can't make that one, I'm afraid. Had to say no. Thank you. Also, I was given a gift by a well-known famous actor who decided to do his handprints for me. And he said he would like to lend a hand to feet. And that followed quite a few more celebrities I've met, and I've been doing a bit of star spotting as well. And the point is that my life that I thought would be quite negative in the future has opened up to a lot of riches, and my wealth has become so much more obvious to me. Perhaps if there was a message today that I could pass to you guys, aside from, yes, you can, maybe one or two of you might leave with a bit more of a message that thinks to be all you can be. But for me, to be asked to talk at TED was quite a big deal, knowing the history of TED and how it helped me. But also, strangely, this all happened to me on the 8th of June, 2013. And I've packed that all in. This is the anniversary of my illness, 1 year on. And I couldn't think of a better way of commemorating it. Thank you.